Traders, how are you? With Marcello. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week from the born place. How do you say it in English? How do you say it in English? The center of finance. So there were comments by a Fed official on Thursday, and then this was interpreted on Friday after the chairman, Fed Powell from the Central Bank of the United States, said that a lot of analysts now are saying, well, maybe now they're not going to raise interest rates as much. Now, remember that the interest rates are one of the most important things in our economy due to the fact that the United States, which is still the largest economy in the world, is almost 70% consumer spending. Another country, for example, like Germany, which is the fourth largest economy in the world, their consumer spending ranges in between about 50 to 55%. So the expectation now that they're not going to continue raising rates set the markets absolutely blazing. Gold hit an all-time high. Oil did go down a little bit, but stocks across the board generally went up. United States and also Canada, all positive. And on Friday, 42 stocks on the S&P 500 hit 52-week highs, and of those 42, 24 of the stocks hit all-time highs. So now there's a lot of optimism due to the fact that, well, if they're not going to continue raising rates and the recession supposedly is going to finally come next year, which is 2024, that would mean that they're going to start lowering rates, and then that's going to leave the consumer with a little bit of extra cushion, let's say, to go out and spend money. One of the pieces of news this week that I thought was interesting is that your taxpayer dollars in the United States are paying $451 billion with a B. I was going to try to say something funny, but I couldn't put it together. They're paying, your tax dollars are being paid to house and take care of illegal migrants. Now, I don't know how you feel, but there are a lot of people that are suffering out there in the United States. I mean, we still have poverty in the United States, and I wonder why it's better to treat people who aren't from this country better than the people that are from this country that need help. Don't you think? Even, for example, minorities and African Americans, and, why aren't we helping these people with that money instead of, or the situation with Ukraine, there was a budget error with these hundreds of billions of dollars or tens of billions of dollars that went to Ukraine when all those billions would have rebuilt Maui after the fires, right? Another thing I thought was really interesting is in the United States military, there's an IQ test. Everybody's, always doing these tests. And actually, there's a certain percentage of the people that are in the military that they're not smart enough to do anything. They can't have them do anything. And 16% of Americans in the United States have an IQ below 75. So literally 16% of the people in this country, or over 53 million people, aren't smart enough to do anything. So think about that next time you think that you're not doing well. Overseas market news. The European markets are mostly positive. Russia was one of the only negative ones in the group. Latin America mostly mixed. Malays, Argentina, the Merval went down by over 5%. One of the things that was really interesting this week was the fact that Milei now is not going to join the BRICS countries. He said that he's going to not do that, and he's going to try to focus to strengthen relationships with the United States and dollarize the Argentine economy. If you guys don't know, they have something along the lines of triple-digit inflation. They're walking into hyperinflation. And another thing as well is, if you don't know what BRICS is, it's an economic group head, for example, by Russia and China. The full group is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and also South Africa. And what they want to do is they want to be able to create their own currency, their own economic bloc, their own international payment systems. So now, with Argentina being not a huge economy worldwide, but the third largest in Latin America, that might be able to give them some problems if other countries start to pull out as well. Africa and the Middle East, mostly mixed. We have Egypt being the biggest loser there. And then in the far, far east, we have the Hang Seng out of Hong Kong at the most negative of them all at over 4%. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency news. Some of you guys won't know the footballer Cristiano Ronaldo, but it's one of the famous and highest paid footballers in the world. That's not American football. It's, the real football. He's being sued for $1 billion due to promoting Binance. If you guys remember, Binance settled with the U.S. justice system with the illegal things that they were doing, including the CEO. They were laundering money and doing all kinds of things that they shouldn't have. So now Cristiano Ronaldo is getting that lawsuit for promoting them. Binance also is going to delist and stop support for the stablecoin BUSD in December of 2023. And also Philippines has decided to shut down and block the access to Binance in the entire country as well. Philippines, by the way, just got hit by a 7.5 earthquake. There was about, if I remember correctly, 5 or 6 earthquakes that were 5 or 6 and even 7 on the scale. And they're evacuating people from the city nearby due to the tsunami risk that's gonna come. Bitcoin for the week, 2.2% positive, 38,742, just short of that. And Coinbase jumped over 7% after they had the second best monthly gain on the NASDAQ since 2021. This is due to the fact of the situation in Binance. Remember that Coinbase is the largest crypto exchange in the United States. And they're also, I don't want to say they're regulated because technically I don't think crypto has regulation or full regulation yet, but they've been trying to institutionalize the crypto game by asking advice and how to do things with the U.S. government. So they're a little bit more institutional and let's call it semi-regulated in the United States. One of the only exchanges that is, by the way. Commodities. I put the food and the conspiracy theories about food in the commodity section because technically it's a commodity. 38% of Europeans are no longer eating 3 meals a day. Maybe we should try to do that in the United States to lose some weight. Rice is also nearing a 15-year high, and some analysts are saying that this is actually going to be worse than the crisis in rice since 2008. Rice prices are going to possibly hit new 15-year highs, and this is due to the phenomenon of El Nino, which is affecting a lot of farmlands in Asia, in addition to possibly some weather manipulation. If you guys believe in that, put on my conspiracy theory hat. Bidenomics, a Big Mac extra value meal is selling at $18, which is $10 more than when it was in 2008. It's a 125% increase. So if you divide that by 5, just doing the numbers in my head, it's about 20-something%. And one of the things I thought was really interesting as well is I got a new story to repeat for you guys every week instead of the burger story, the Five Guys burger story. I'm staying at a hotel near an airport that I stayed in during the 2020 pandemic. And during the pandemic, I stayed in the hotel for $74. I just looked up the receipt now, and what I paid today, you guys are watching this video, $132. So in a span of 3 years, there was an increase of 78% or 26% a year. So the real inflation rate is really a lot higher than what they tell you. I always try to kind of reinforce that because if you haven't started your side hustle yet, you probably should, whether it's trading or YouTube or I don't know if you can really flip houses successfully anymore because of the economy, but get your game on because it's getting tough out there and it's going to get worse. Americans need an extra $11,400 today to afford the basics of living with this new Bidenomics system and inflation. Thursday, OPEC Plus announced that they're going to roughly do a voluntary cut of 900,000 barrels per day. Brazil has decided to join OPEC Plus to try to convince the other nations to get off oil, if you guys want to believe that. And crude for the week, U.S. went down 1.98% to 74.07, while Brent went down 2.15% to 78.88. The biggest mover this week in the commodity space was gold. It hit a record high. It got to 2,080, if I'm not mistaken, but it closed at $2,072.70 and went up 3.44%. Silver is also at 3-month highs. That went up 4.54% to $25.53. Financial and banking news. The longtime partner of Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, is dead at 99 years old. I wonder how long Warren Buffett is going to last for. He's up in his 90s as well. But Berkshire Hathaway definitely has a lot of cash to continue what they're doing. Consumer spending during the very popular Black Friday Thanksgiving weekend hit a record of $12.4 billion, up 9.6%. The question I have is if the two examples of food and hotels, for example, that I just gave you, that went up by 20 whatever percent a year, how much of the consumer spending is actually the increase in prices rather than people actually spending more money? Because if we assume it's just 10%, right? So if the same number from last year, the people spent 10% more this year instead of 20, that would still be a record. See what I'm saying? Now, what was interesting this year is the fact that the buy now, pay later usage went up by 42.5%, which added 940 million in sales. So there's a lot more people that are trying to pay in payments. That went up by over 42%, while the record only went up by, the number here, 9.6%. So I'm willing to bet that the actual consumer spending was less than it was last year, but it appears that it's higher due to the fact that we have a lot higher inflation, which I would still guess is at about 20, 30, maybe even as high as 40% in some things. Buying homes is now 52% more expensive than renting a home, which is at a record high, while renting is still higher as well, as that's one of the things, for example, that's gone up quite a bit. UK housing prices unexpectedly went up by 0.2% in November, even though they're lower than 2% compared to a year ago. And in political news, the UK health security head admits that the use of face masks were never evidence-based. It was a video that he actually did. I thought that was really interesting. And Walmart is suspending all of its advertising dollars on X. I heard a really interesting analysis in regards to what's going on with Elon Musk and Twitter, X. And I think it's probably true. What's actually happening is they're looking just for an excuse to attack him, and no matter what. And the reason why is because he's the competition. A lot of news agencies, for example, are pretty much obsolete because you can just hop on Twitter and get instant news when you need it. And so when he said those supposedly anti-Semitic things, which he apologized for, and telling the advertisers to go F themselves. I don't know if you guys saw that video on CNBC, but it was hilarious. I thought it was very good.
Go yourself. Is that clear?
But essentially what's happening is they're just trying to attack Elon for cutting off the censorship in Twitter, because now people can speak the truth instead of being censored on every single platform on the planet. And I think that's actually what's going on. If you didn't know that the Justice Department actually filed a lawsuit against SpaceX for not hiring illegal aliens or illegal migrants, when it's illegal for them to do so due to the fact that their business is considered national security. So, that, to me, it kind of seems in line that that's actually what's happening with Elon Musk. The kids, the teenagers that have the thing in their arm from the pandemic, don't want to say it so they don't ban this channel too, are 4 times more likely to die from cancer than the people who didn't receive the thing in their arm. And Attorney General Ken Paxton out of Texas has filed a lawsuit against Pfizer for misrepresenting the things in your arm from the pandemic, the efficacy and information censorship. And Russia's Supreme Court designates the LGBT international movement an extremist organization. And now Europe is looking to give asylum to those people from the community that come from Russia. So ban everything from Russia, but it's okay if you're LGBT, basically. For economic news, out of Europe, the PMI, which is the Purchasing Manufacturers Index, continued to weaken in November. The overall PMI showed contraction. This is the 17th month in a row that we've seen the contraction. So it basically implies that the European economy isn't doing as well. Italian's economy grew by 0.1% in Q3 due to the exports and firm consumer spending. Remember that the consumer spending in the United States, I believe I mentioned this early in the video, it's almost 70% of the economy. Germany, which does a lot of manufacturing, for example, is between 50 to 55% consumer spending. So Italy, I would guess, is about 50 to 60% as well. U.S. economy was even stronger in Q3. It grew at a 5.2% annualized rate. So they take the growth number of Q3 and then they annualize it. Much better than expected. And due to high borrowing costs, in addition to the elevated inflation, a lot of people are actually noticing how remarkable the U.S. economy actually is. I wouldn't be surprised if the government is actually manipulating those numbers as well to make sure that they win some elections coming next year. And I don't know if you guys heard, there's another pandemic, there's another illness coming out of China just in time for the elections next year. Japan's Facts Act contracted. The factory activity contracted for a 6th straight month in November. This is on a fall for international demand in addition to domestic demand. And the manufacturing sector in China actually went up in November rather than down. So you can see overall, we're kind of getting more pessimistic news or more negative news compared to positive news. In corporate news, Amazon now is the biggest delivery company in the United States, surpassing both UPS and FedEx. And in another surprising move, Amazon actually hired Elon Musk's SpaceX to send some satellites up into the sky. Their service is going to be called the Cooper system, which is basically a satellite internet system that they want to compete with Starlink. Tesla delivered its first Cybertruck. I don't know if you guys have seen the videos, but it's actually pretty cool. The Cybertruck can pull a Porsche 911 and beat the Porsche 911 in a race while pulling on a tractor, on a trailer, a Porsche 911. So the Cybertruck can actually go faster with a Porsche that it's in a trailer pulling than an actual Porsche 11 itself. I don't know if I said that right, but I'm going to say it one more time. The Cybertruck is so fast that it can actually pull a Porsche on a trailer faster than an actual Porsche itself. It's incredible. The highest Cyber Beast is going to be $99,990 for about $100K. The all-wheel drive is just under $80K, and the rear-wheel drive is $61K. Ford went up over 3% after reiterating that they're going to continue with their guidance. This is due to the fact that they're slashing costs, and especially things like the EV production due to the increased costs from the contract that they signed with the UAW. Not a lot of investment in trade news, and in technology news, the EVs, in a consumer report, they have 80% more problems compared to gas vehicles, which I thought was really interesting. In international events, the U.S. State Department said that Putin is waiting for the 2024 U.S. presidential elections to decide to offer a peace agreement, even though it's been found out now that there was a peace agreement where basically Russia wanted Ukraine to stay neutral, but the U.S. told Zelensky to not take the peace agreement because they needed a way to launder money through war. And Henry Kissinger, which is the top diplomat that helped China open up to the world via the U.S., has actually died as well. So we have Charlie Munger, Henry Kissinger, the Queen even died recently. We're in for some bad times. The Philippines built a new Coast Guard station on the island disputed in the South China Sea with China. They are evacuating people outside of the city that got hit by the island, I should say, they got hit by the 7.5 earthquake because they're expecting a tsunami. North Korea says that any interference with its satellite operations is going to be a declaration of war. And looking at the other news here, heavy snowfall in Germany. I mentioned all the earthquakes that we had recently as well. There's the mystery of how the Egyptian pyramids were built has finally solved thanks to a discovery of an ancient branch of the Nile River that once flowed through Giza. It's hundreds of meters wide, which is now being speculated that it was full of water and they floated the blocks down the river. And another thing that I thought was really interesting this week is that a Claude Monet painting sold for $71 or $74 million, which is a record. That's the week for this new, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember, the preppers were right.